Hey everyone, welcome back to the workshop. A couple weeks ago, we took an initial look at the LaserPecker LP5. We did an unboxing, assembled it, and just ran some of the stock files that they include with the flash drive. But I want to take a better look at this. We're going to look at some of its features, kind of go over how it connects to your computer or phone. And I'm going to put some of my files to it. I'm going to use some of my materials. We're going to see how this does in my workshop with some real world tests. Try to give you a better idea of what to expect out of this machine. At the end, I'll wrap it up with a few of my thoughts. But right away, let's take advantage of one of its cool features and its portability, because it's middle of summer out here. It's a little hot out in this workshop, and I'd rather be really comfortable in this. So we're going to take this down to the basement workshop and check it out. So if this is interesting to you, you want to check out more, stay tuned. We're going to jump right into it. All right, so we've brought everything down into the basement workshop. It's far more comfortable down here. And so we're going to be taking a look at the LaserPecker LP5. So let's jump right into the general specifications. This is a dual 20-watt blue diode as well as a 20-watt IR fiber laser. It's using a galvanometer on the top of the head. It uses a couple of mirrors to move the beam around, which allows it to get up to speeds of 10,000 millimeters a second in its engraving speeds. As far as working area, we have a few different ways to look at this. The base, if you want just a real square, your most square area, it's about 100 by 100 millimeters, or roughly 4 by 4 inches. However, it does have a little more elliptical working area, so if you have kind of rounded corners, you can kind of stretch that out to something that's about 4 3/4 inches wide by about 6 3 inches tall, or roughly 120 by 160 millimeters in that kind of ellipse pattern. Now, if you add on the slide extension that we have here, now your working area jumps up to 160 millimeters tall, or 6.3 inches, by about 300 millimeters wide, or 11.8 inches in your total working area. So a few different options that make this a little more flexible. Let's talk about the physical dimensions of the kind of the base unit here. Now, when this fully extends up, because this does lift up to do your focus operations, it's going to sit at about 18.5 inches, or 470 millimeters tall, and that includes this top handle here. As far as your depth, including the cables and this USB plug back here, we got about 12 inches from the front of this plate to the back of those plugs, or 305 millimeters. And then as far as width, from the side of this tower to the side of this plate, basically your base plate area here, it is about 8 inches, or 203 millimeters wide. And then if you were to add in the powered slide extension, you're looking at about 18 inches wide, or 457 millimeters. There's also maybe a couple plugs on the sides. You're going to need to account for that. But so your overall working area that you're going to need for the base unit and these accessories, you're going to want probably about 24 inches cubed, just to have some working room and some overflow space front and back. You don't want this to be too crammed in by any means, but it doesn't take up a lot of space at all. As far as the weight, this is the heftiest LaserPecker unit I've had, so it is a little bit heavier. Comes in at about 6.1 kilograms, or roughly 13.25 pounds. So now, as far as power, the base laser itself and all the accessories do get powered through just one power brick, and this does have a rating of 24 volt output at up to 7.5 amps for a total of 180 watts. So if you're looking for portable power options, you're going to want to factor in that maximum power rating of 180 watts into calculating how long your power supply is going to last for that. All of our connectivity comes off the back of the unit, as we showed in our previous video, and so we do have our USB thumb drive connection over here. We do have our power ports, and then we have our USB out to our computer, as well as USB extensions for connecting and powering the other units as well. Outside of that, you can also connect to this laser via Bluetooth on your phone, and once you get that set up, you can actually connect this to your Wi-Fi access point, as long as you have a 2.4 gigahertz wireless network. And then after that, then you can search for it and find it, connect to it via wireless using the LaserPecker app. Speaking of applications, this does have the LaserPecker Design Space software, and that does run on iOS and Android for mobile devices, as well as Apple OS and Windows based operating systems. This is stated to be laser burn compatible, But they have not released the device configuration for this yet. So I'm anxious to get to that, and hopefully in a later video we'll look at the features in Lightburn. But all of our testing today is going to be through the LaserPecker Design Space software. I've used it a lot on my laptop, as well as using it on my mobile device as well. They both work fairly well, and we'll go into a few of those features a little bit later. Currently, LaserPecker offers the LP5 in 3 different kits. It starts with the basic kit, which is your primary laser unit with the conical cover. That also includes a cutting plate as well as a set of safety goggles. So with the goggles, one of the things that I appreciate seeing is they actually have the rating inscribed onto the lenses themselves. And this is something I've been calling out other manufacturers on their supplied lasers safety goggles, is that they don't actually have the laser rating on here. So if you look at this, it does say from 364 to 460 nanometer OD4, as well as 900 to 1090 nanometer OD4. And so the OD is the optical density, it's the amount of light it is blocking, as well as the nanometer is the wavelength of light it's blocking. So this does cover both wavelengths that are included with this laser. So this is a nice set of goggles that at least they're telling you the rating. Now, these aren't necessarily a one-size-fits-all. They do have little extensions this way, but they may be a little narrower for your head, and which is a little bit the case for me, especially with my prescription glasses. So if these don't fit you, I will have a link down below to a set of goggles that do work well for me, that covers both wavelengths of this laser, and also tend to fit over my prescription glasses. Now, moving up from the basic kit, they also have their deluxe kit, which starts adding in the accessories. So you will gain their Rotary Chuck along with their rest that goes with that, and the slide extension that expands our working area up to that 160 by 300 millimeter working area. Now, these accessories are the same as that were offered with the LaserPecker 4 and some earlier lasers. So if you've purchased one of those and you're looking to upgrade to this one, you don't need to get this deluxe kit unless you want to have duplicates and run them on there. They will work with yours. So you could opt for the basic kit and just use the existing ones you have. Now, moving up from there, you can also get their ultimate kit, which includes the base laser, all of the extensions and chuck rotary, as well as their desktop air purifier unit. And so we're going to be taking a look at this a little bit later, see how well it functions. But that does connect via a hose on the back of the exhaust port of the cone, and pipes it into that air purifier to help cut down on the smoke and debris that will get put out by this laser when vaporizing materials or deep embossing into slate and metal. So nice to have that safety feature, especially if you're taking this to events and such. This will help protect you and your customers if you're going to be lasering outside your workshop. All right, so one of the really cool improvements on the LP5 is the conical safety shroud here. Now, the older models had just kind of the colored acrylic cone, and that kind of caused a few problems getting, you had to move it up and down anytime you wanted to swap material out. Well, they've made the improvements on here. Most of it's opaque, but this front shield is actually magnetic. Pops right off, which gives you lots of access to the inside of the machine. So if you need to swap things out, make small adjustments, you can do that without playing around with your focus, lifting the machine up and down. And then you can just snap it back on. I think that's a great improvement. The other thing that I'm noticing on this one compared to the older models is while they had the fan, the exhaust fan on the older ones, it was fairly open, and so you could actually get a lot of light reflection in here. In this one, there's actually a plastic shroud in the front of this, so the air kind of wraps around there and blocks the light, but allows the air to come around and then exhaust out. And so they've made some improvements here as well to help improve keeping any of the light radiation from leaking out around this shroud. Now, with this, they do include this hose. This does snap onto this back exhaust fan, and then you can expand this out and pipe it out to out to a window if you have that, or it will connect into the desktop air purifier. All right, so this is the desktop air purifier that LaserPecker offers. This does come with the ultimate kit, or I believe they have the option to buy this separately if you're not opting to get the whole deluxe bundle. It is about 9 inches by 9 inches by about 10 inches tall. There is this kind of fold down handle, which adds just a little bit of length off the back or the front. And as we spin it around, the C has both an inlet and an outlet, as well as the power input and a power switch. inside of it. You can just lift this lid off. It does have a rubber gasket to help keep things tight, and then it comes with one filter cartridge. Now I haven't opened this one up yet. We're going to be testing this out in just a little bit. All right, so here is the filter cartridge, and they do have this little diagram on the side here that shows it does have a pre-filter, and this is cotton. You are supplied with a spare one. Now you, in other models from other smoke purifiers, been able to clean this and dry it out a little bit, because this does kind of take the heavy particulate. But then it is layered down, and this is all assembled, so you can't take this apart, but there's a HEPA filter, advanced carbon, and then a secondary HEPA filter in this unit. You can see that one on the bottom. So actually has an extra layer of filtering. I've seen of the others, most of them are only a 3-layer. But the size of it, we'll have to see how well this works. My past experience is that these are great for incidental use, the occasional engraving, and I like to reserve them for when I'm doing events where I want to provide a little extra air filtering. It's always best if you can vent it outside. Use it in a well-ventilated area, not have to run through the filters. I'm not 100% sure what these filters run for. I will try to put that information down below if I have that. But these tend to do a good job of when you're doing light engravings, as well as if you are doing the deep embossing engravings of both metal or slate or stone. That does produce fine particulate of heavy metals and or silica dust. Both of those are very bad for your lungs, so this is a great option for doing those longer engraves, capturing that particulate and not letting it just float around where you or others would breathe it in. So this simply just drops into here, and there's also a bit of a foam rubber gasket on the bottom which helps seal it off. So this will just drop into there. We got to put our thick foam one back, and then this just presses into place, and that kind of seals it up. So this does have its own separate power brick. The power ratings on here, it's a 24 volt, 5 amp, 120 watts. So combine this and the laser, you'd be pulling about 400 watts max power. Again, if you're looking at mobile power units, keep that in mind for scaling up your power systems. All right, so we took a look at the air purifier. I've now hooked it up to the laser, and so now I want to show you kind of the volume level of both of them. So unfortunately, the LaserPecker doesn't have an on-off switch, so pretty much you power it on by plugging it in. There is an emergency stop button which will kind of pause its activity, but it still keeps things like the fans running. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. I've already got the shroud plugged in, so that's going to kick down that fan as well, and then we'll turn this on and we'll see how loud it is. Alright, so now there you hear the laser itself. So the shroud fan kicked in, and now the cooling fan in here kicked in. The cooling fan for the module is also variable, so that will increase and decrease as it senses temperature or not. So this isn't even necessarily the loudest it'll get. If you're running it for a long time on a higher power, it will kick in that fan to help some cooling as well. But let's check this for sound levels. So about a foot away from this, it's about 64 decibels. Not terrible, but like I say, the sound does kind of, there's no way to turn it off other than unplugging it. So now let's go ahead and kick the air purifier on as well. So now we have a lot of extra noise. We're sitting at about 73, spiking to 75. So definitely something that's a little more busier, a little bit noisier. So one of the things that people really enjoy with these is working in slate and metal. So let's take a look at some of that stuff. Now, in my intro video, I did use the sample file where we engraved grayscale engraving into slate, and that worked pretty well. As a matter of fact, it was so hot and the slate was so thin that it actually blasted through on some of the details. So, we'll need to work with that on maybe scaling back the power on that one. But I went ahead and imported my logo here. And so this is more of a vector image, and went ahead and set up the engrave. And as you can see there, we got some nice deep engraving, nice detailed engraving on there. So this was done with a frequency of 26, and then put the power at about 60 and did about 20 passes on this. And that worked out pretty well. Like I said, we got a fairly deep engrave and also got all the details in there. Now, when doing this, you definitely want to hook up either the dust extractor, air purifier, or you want to make sure you're venting this out. This does create a lot of silica dust, and so you want to both remove this from there with a little bit of a fan, but you also don't want to be breathing that in. So you definitely want to be having the hood on here, having it pulling that air out of the back of the module and being captured in the air purifier, or trying to vent it out safely. So of course you don't always have to do deep engravings. We were also able to do just a quick marking. This is, of course, both of these are done with the IR laser. This one just happened to be more at a 50 frequency, as well as about a 15 depth and 45 power. Went really quickly, gives a nice contrast on there. If you want to increase the contrast as well, you can pre-finish the slate tile. You can give it a nice smooth sanded finish, as well as add a little bit of polyurethane to give that just a nice dark look. It'll give this a little more pop. So besides slate, of course, we can be working with metal, and again, we can set up the deep engrave on the metal. And so here we see this coin, and this is done with the pre-configured grayscale of a wolf. And this did take up to about 256 passes. We're doing this at the 26 frequency, and it is not a quick process. So this in itself, doing this coin, did take a little over 3 hours. And then I did follow it up with a bit of a polishing pass. I set up a 35mm circle, set that to about 50 frequency, and then ran about 5 passes on that at about 10% power and 10% depth. That just helps clean off the top of the coin, get any debris off of there, and just clean it up, but give it almost a little bit of a polish. This one, there's a little bit more of a details in there, so it doesn't polish it, but definitely something I want to play around with a little bit more. It is possible to do deeper engraves on this, but be mindful that, you know, that slate tile, the Vintari one took about 20 minutes or so. The rosette kind of stone that I did in the preview video, that took about 3 hours, and this coin also took about 3.5 hours. So it's not a quick process when you're talking about a 20-watt fiber laser, but it is definitely possible, more than you would have with some of the lighter power 2-watt IR modules. So we can, of course, do our typical engraving, and so this is just our painted aluminum cards, and setting that up at a very light pass, and this was able to crank this out in just about a minute, and fairly high quality, fairly high resolution. The QR code works very well, and so with those corner pieces that you can screw down to the plate, you could easily batch these out and just go through a number of them. But the nice feature with this laser is, with the 20-watt IR, we can also is a blue. These are actually 0.2mm thick cards. These are aluminum cards, and so your metal cutting is going to be limited to, you know, thinner, lighter, non-ferrous metals like this. This is very thin stuff, but it's still rigid enough, and you get that contrast from the colors. You could definitely use these to embellish items, and you can, you know, cut out some custom shapes, add them to your pieces, and just kind of opens up another dimension to it. So, and one of the questions we often get with a lot of lasers, but especially fiber lasers, is can you add color to stainless steel? And so you have the options of playing around with your power, your speed, as well as your frequency. I did some playing around in the 50 to 60 frequency, and here is just one of my tests. And you see we do have a gradient here. We have some whites up here all the way down to these dark browns as well. And I also continued testing. I burned through this sheet of stainless steel, and eventually I did end up with some colors. So I think in this quadrant, you can kind of see in the top here, we're starting to get some blues and such. And so this is going to be very dependent on the stainless steel. Different thicknesses and different types of stainless steel, the temperature that it happens to be at, are all going to be factors that come into this. But I was getting in the 50 frequency range, I was getting somewhere around 58 to the low 60 as far as power, and about a 50% depth on this was giving me some color in this sheet of stainless steel. Now I was trying to play around and see if I could pull out a few more colors, but I ran plenty of tests and just kind of struggled to really get some consistent other colors, but those blues were coming out. So it is possible, but you're going to have to do some playing, and you're going to want to make sure that you can control that you're getting the consistent thickness, the same type of stainless steel, and that you're controlling your temperatures. Otherwise, those numbers are going to be varying because it's through a process of annealing and the temperature of this to create those colors of the stainless steel. So we have our accessories with this laser, and one of them is this slide extension. Now, previously I looked at the LaserPecker 2, which had a roller that tried to kind of conveyor feed some of the material through. It worked well as a roller, but in feeding larger material through, I kind of struggled to get it to stay. This has a nice platform that will slide with this base, sits down over the laser, and this slides back and forth, giving you that extra working area. It also has these fins which allow for some airflow through there, so you can also do some cutting on this. So like you mentioned, you have that 160 by 300 millimeter working area. You just hook it up via the USB to the back of the laser, and then you go into the software and change the setting to put it into the slide extension mode, which will then increase your working area. We were able to, of course, engrave, just quick text, Vintari's workshop across. This is about a foot wide, so definitely wider than that working area. But then we were also able to take another longer piece. I cut a couple things out. I engraved a logo with my words. I went a little light on that engrave, but then also was able to cut it out, as well as batch out a few of these LaserPecker keychains, adding the engraving and then doing the cutting. And so this is something where maybe if you had a number of those items, you needed to cut them out, you could batch them up in a bigger item. Or like I say, if you have something in that 300 millimeter width range, which is going to be about a foot, give or take, you'll be able to work with that with this. So as a portable laser that has both the IR and the blue diode, offers you some flexibility as well as a little bit extra height. Now, so we also have the Chuck rotary attachment, which is really nice. I prefer the Chuck style rotaries anytime possible. They do have these jaws, which are interchangeable with some posts, some smaller jaws. You could even 3D print your own mechanisms. And so then this just allows you to open and close the jaws, brings them in closer or wider to grab around your object. And then you also have this adjustment on this side. You can loosen this up and then angle the Chuck in such a way that will provide you access to the inside of a round object, such as doing rings with the posts, or if you're doing a tapered cup, you can give it a slight angle so that the taper actually ends up level and you have a area that's going to be staying in focus. Again, it has the USB connections on the back, so you connect this back into the back of the laser, you go into the socket. And did with this was first to test it with a dowel, and I recommend doing that. These are inexpensive. You can do some testing, and then we went ahead and just threw my logo on there. It works as a great testing apparatus, and had some great success. So again, you're going to want to make sure in the software that you orient things correctly. The Chuck actually sits from the back and goes forward, so that's going to be vertical and should help you with that orientation. But after that, we went ahead and upgraded to a mug, and so this is just me playing on my logo for non-laser workshop stuff. So it's just Vintari Outdoor Adventures. Went ahead and kind of cranked this out on some design software to try it on there. So this is on a stainless steel cup without any marking paint. It's just using the laser, the IR laser, to interact with the stainless steel. And I went ahead and just used their stainless steel setting in the software, and it actually came out fairly well. Alright, so we've tested a lot of the features of this laser. We've gone through a lot of the accessories and given you a few examples of what it can do on some of the different materials it can interact with. So you may be asking me, what do I feel are the pros and possibly cons to the LaserPecker LP5? Well, the pros are it is still fairly portable as far as getting into a 20-watt fiber laser, as well as also having the 20-watt blue diode laser in this price range. I've seen some lasers of similar form factor, but they're either a lower power or they have like a massive base and they might have a cable going to a separate controller. This is the most compact 20-watt IR laser that I've had a chance to play with. And so portability is really nice. So even with all the accessories, I feel that it would not be difficult to get this into a package where you could take it portable. And so one of the big features of these types of lasers is on-site engraving. So portability, having that work pretty well is great. I love the fact also that they've improved this shroud. Speaking of on-site engraving, you want to make sure that you're providing safety. So they've definitely improved this cone with this removable shroud. Gives you easy access into here, but the opaque shield is going to block most of the light from the other angles. The fact that they put the plate in with the fan so that that's not leaking light out as well. Plus, you can just put the extension of the hose on, and that's going to help block any light coming out of that fan area as well. Definitely some strides to improve the protective nature of the shroud to allow you a little more safety features around using this without having to make sure everybody has safety glasses on. As I mentioned, it has both that 20-watt blue diode as well as the 20-watt IR laser, so you're really getting a lot of power in both worlds. Now, it's not going to be comparable to a 20-watt gantry laser that has a full-on air assist. It's going to come close, but its cutting ability is going to be a little bit reduced due to the fact that it doesn't have that air assist. It's throwing that beam from a little bit more distance, and as you get out to the extents, you're going to get a little more of an angular cut versus when it's straight down. So you have a little, it's not going to be an apples to apples comparison with a gantry style 20-watt laser, but it's going to give you a lot of that capability in the blue light while also having that 20-watt IR fiber capability in one package. And then finally, this is relatively simple to use. Their interface, whether it's on the portable devices or on the computer, it's not hard to pick up and start playing around with. Now, as a more advanced user, you may find some limitations, and that's where I'm excited to hopefully get into the Lightburn features of this in the soon. I'm hoping to get that device file, be able to plug in and see how it interacts with that software and see if that maybe opens up some capabilities. But their software itself, I feel, is nice and capable. You can import a lot of your designs from other software. It takes SVGs and DXF files as vectors. It brings in images, and there's a lot of features to adjust those images within the software. I'm going to go a little more in depth in that in some future videos. We're going to play around with some projects of engraving some images, as well as seeing what else we can do with some of the cutting and metal options with this. But wanted to make sure we didn't make this review too long in just touching on those subjects in this review, but we will jump into more in a later video. So of course, no laser is perfect. Let's talk about what I would say is some areas of improvements. And the first one being, it can be a little bit loud. It doesn't, the fans stay on all the time. They don't wind down except for that pass-through fan. So the fan for the exhaust stays on the whole time, and there's always a slight fan going on it. As I mentioned earlier, it's not terrible. You can talk over it and whatnot, but I have found myself going, okay, if I'm not running it, I do turn it off. Which brings me to my other kind of area of improvement is there's no hard power switch on this. I have to unplug the power from the back to really truly turn it off and get those fans to turn off and such. So I feel that detracts from this laser a little bit. Plugs like that do have a certain number of insertion ratings, and before those plugs start loosening up and failing. So it'd be really nice to have, you know, a switch that can turn on and off the power without having to actually unplug the barrel plug from the back. But it's not the end of the world. It's fairly easy to get at, just something that I think I'd like to see. The other thing that I noticed is dealing with a more complex design, especially when streaming it from my phone, the file to the device. It seemed like when it was going in between layers and operations, it would kind of pause, stream it in, and then start. So if you have a lot of little items on there and they end up being kind of different objects in there, it can slow the job down a little bit. Now, I found that when you load the file onto the USB drive, it's definitely a bit faster, and also, you know, connecting to the computer, it's hit or miss there. But I feel like it's just a little bit slower in a few cases when it's a very complex file. So you may want to load it onto the USB drive, or see if you can group things together into fewer layers, and that'll help improve the overall speed of the job. All right, so this is going to wrap up my more in-depth review of the LaserPecker LP5. We went a little more in-depth onto some of its capabilities with various materials, such as cutting thin metal, deep embossed engravings on slate and brass coins, as well as using some of the accessories that are available for it. I'm excited to dive into a couple more projects. I definitely want to play around with a little more with its 3D embossing engraving capabilities. So look forward to a video in the future. I'll try to show you a little more about the software, its use in getting those, as I feel a lot of people are really curious about its deep engraving capabilities. But if there's something else you would like to see with this, let me know. I will try to get that included as well. Always like to take your feedback and input on what you would like to see out of these lasers to help you inform your decision to see if it's right for you. So that's it for today. I'm going to get out of here, but I hope you can get out into your workshop and make something too. We'll catch you next time.